In March of 2006, I found out that I had been chosen as a participant in the Japan Fulbright Memorial Fund Teachers Program and that I would be traveling to Japan in June. I was thrilled because I love to travel and I've never been to Japan, and even more so because this trip was completely funded by the Japanese government. Now, I know that you're sitting in the audience for this presentation thinking, oh, here we go, a long, boring presentation of someone else's vacation. I hope it's quick because I have things to do. Well, you're right that you're going to see photos of my trip, but I hope it will be entertaining. This was an amazing opportunity, and doing this presentation for you is part of my follow-on plan of sharing what I saw, heard, learned, and yes, tasted. The information that I received during this experience was vast. 200 teachers from all over the United States spent the first week of the trip in Tokyo. We attended sessions led by members of the government, educators, and economists. We were treated to a demonstration of a kabuki dancer preparing herself for a performance. We got to listen to musicians playing the koto and the flute, traditional Japanese instruments. We were taken on a tour of the Diet Building, which is where the equivalent of our Congress meets. All this information and culture was great, and I'd be glad to share in more detail with anyone who's interested. But the things that really made an impression on me were the everyday things. Things like toilets. Yes, you heard that correctly. And again, don't worry, because this whole presentation isn't about toilets, but I have to say that Japan has the most high-tech toilets I've ever seen. And at first I thought this was just because we were in a very high-class hotel in Tokyo, but these were in each hotel and also in the home where I stayed for one night. But on the other end of the spectrum is what I've not so fondly called the squatty potty. I only saw these in public restrooms, and they are rather tricky. Okay, enough toilet talk. Another thing that surprised me was the number of vending machines. They seemed to be everywhere, and they sold all sorts of beverages, soft drinks, water, coffee, beer, Pocari Sweat. I didn't taste that one. I never saw one that sold food of any kind. It's considered impolite in Japan to eat or drink while walking down the street. And a somewhat related observation is that there are very few trash cans in public places, yet the streets and sidewalks are very clean and free of trash. I was told that if a Japanese person has some trash, they take it home to dispose of it. I saw more recycling bins than trash cans. Recycling is very big there. Japan is a very clean country. I did get somewhat tired of taking off my shoes and changing into slippers. You even have to take off your indoor shoes and change into toilet slippers in certain places like schools and homes. But I suppose all of this fits into a certain mentality of keeping things clean, and it seems to work. The streets are clean. There's no graffiti in the subways. In school, there's no writing on the bathroom walls, no trash on the floor, no mud tracked in from outside. Since the kids are the ones who do the cleaning, I'm sure that they've learned from an early age that there's no use messing something up if you're the one who will have to clean it eventually. One very interesting thing that I did in Tokyo was visit the Tsukiji Fish Market, the largest wholesale fish and seafood market in the world. Why would I get up at 5 a.m. to go look at dead fish? Well, the sun rises at about 4:30, and if you've only been in Japan a few days, you're up anyway because you haven't adjusted to the time change, so why not? And people had told me that it's an experience well worth having. There's a tuna auction that was supposed to be pretty cool, so 4 of us got in a taxi and off we went. When they say that it's the largest fish market, they aren't kidding. We got out of the taxi with no idea where to find the auction. It was fun to look at the fish, though. We wandered around taking pictures of lots of dead fish, some live ones, and occasionally asking auction or sale, only to be guided in several different directions. We finally happened onto a sign that said visitors in English, and we had found the auction. There were huge tunas lined up on the floor, people inspecting them and auctioneers doing their thing. I couldn't understand any of it, but yes, it was well worth seeing. Something that surprised me was the number of pachinko parlors. Pachinko is some sort of gambling game. The pachinko parlors seem to be full a lot of the time with all kinds of people, including a lot of men in business suits after work. People stand in the streets handing out packs of tissues with pachinko advertising on them. The establishments are brightly lit and very colorful. When the doors open, you can feel the cool air inside, which is a definite attraction in the heat and humidity, but the noise is deafening and the stench of cigarette smoke is overwhelming. The food in Japan was both great and mysterious, and sometimes frustrating. The food presentation is incredible. Think back to a time when you've been given a box lunch or a bag lunch, and we generally know what to expect with that. But several times on this trip, we received box lunches, and it was like receiving a present. It was always fun to open the lid to discover what was inside, although opening the lid didn't always tell me what I would be eating. There was usually rice, some kind of vegetables, often fish, and many times things that I couldn't figure out. In restaurants, menus were a challenge. Many times they had English on them, sometimes pictures, but sometimes they looked like this. We relied on our Japanese hosts and guides to help us out in cases like this. I ate lotus root, lots of fish, more tofu than I cared to have. I discovered that even something called tomato jello wasn't bad if you put some wasabi on it. I ate a lot of different kinds of noodles, soba, udon, ramen. I like the tempura, of course. You can't really go wrong when you deep fry something. And I tried sushi and sashimi for the first time, and I liked them, though raw octopus and squid were not my favorites. I had one of the most fun dinners ever at a conveyor belt sushi restaurant. You just pick up what you want, keep a stack of plates, and have the waitress add up your plates when you're finished.
They won't barefoot down to my majority time tonight, baby. That's just what I got.
Oh, good. I was thinking I'm going to eat it with chopsticks, but...
You get a little fork.
Cool.
You have a very short stack.
I've been eating all weekend.
The food that still makes me laugh is what my host family served. Spam sushi. Not as terrible as it sounds. But when we were tired of trying to decipher Japanese menus and food, there was always good old McDonald's to fall back on in an emergency. Japan is a beautiful country. I was fortunate to be able to experience different sorts of beauty in Japan. There is the beauty of Tokyo, a modern, neon-filled metropolis bustling with people. I especially like the view from my hotel room at night. But Tokyo is also a city of shrines and ancient beauty. For the second week of my trip, I stayed in the prefecture of Fukushima in the city and vicinity of Aizu Wakamatsu. With my group and my homestay family, I got to see many of the beautiful places in and around the city of Aizu and near Mount Bandai. Waterfalls, canyons, mountains. Japan has it all. Finally, I'll talk about the most wonderful aspect of Japan, its people. I was unendingly impressed with the politeness and hospitality of the people in this country. Our group of American teachers felt welcomed wherever we went. People were curious about us, but also eager to make us feel comfortable. I learned what I should have known already, that kids are kids no matter where they are. Japanese kids are not studying robots. I met all kinds of kids, sweet, annoying, outgoing, shy, curious, helpful. Most of them loved having their pictures taken, and some performed for that very opportunity. They loved music and playing, and the teenagers loved their cell phones. I was fortunate to be able to spend 2 days with a family in Aizu, and they went out of their way to make me feel at home and to show me their beautiful city.